Hello, my dearest family and friends. To anyone who may be wondering how I've been, what happened to me, what's going on, I don't really know, but maybe I can shed a little bit of light. Um, this video is for you. I wish to share some of the context about myself and my life that I have come to better understand this past year, and in the hopes that it may help anyone out there in the world who is trying to understand me to do so. I have some notes here of the things I want to go over, and I will begin by summarizing my entire childhood, by acknowledging that I was someone who was trying to do the most, trying to do every activity, do everything, be everything. I was not succeeding at that, but I was trying to. And without getting into the underlying components of that just yet, I'll say that there was a compulsion to do and create and move that kind of defines my life, and by extension the foundation of all of my relationships throughout my life. Anyways, where was I? I was a child trying to do the most, and I was doing so by following the set of very prescribed paths laid in front of me, as many, if not all of us do, to various degrees in our childhood. But school. I don't have anything against school necessarily, but like that essentially dictated the first, I mean, not the first, from 5 to 18 or whatever. And why am I talking about school? To say that I was living my life within structured systems that, while they gave me options and freedom, kind of told me what to do. There was a time I showed up, a time that I left, a time that lunch happened, and in many ways that didn't work for me, but in many ways it did, and I in my youth gave myself over to the system to usher me through life, and that worked pretty well for me, essentially up until 2020, when, I don't know, I guess I could say that things began to fall apart, but in a good way. I don't know. It's been a weird 3 years, and it's been a weird experience sharing this feeling of aloneness. I don't know. I won't go into the last couple of years, but it's been a period of immense change in my own life, and I recognize it has also been a period of immense change in the world, and there are many ways in which the change in my life has tracked the change in the world and tracked the change in y'all's lives as well, I'm sure, and I feel disconnected to that. It's been a period of retreat for me, and a period in which I have kind of lost touch of where you all are and what you're doing, and so I'm struggling a little bit to bridge this gap between, like, I've changed so much, and I know you've changed so much, and like some things I feel like are probably obvious, but still need to be said. I don't know, working through it. Here we are. Anyone who is still following this rambly path of mine. Anyways, 2020 this path disappears for me, and I find myself launched into the open world in this weird situation of abundant opportunities and crippling fear. Opportunity in that in 2020 is I'm in the middle of the second build out of my van, and so that puts me in the odd position during the initial kind of COVID restriction of having like a major project that I can pour myself into and keep me busy, and then and I graduate college in that vague, haze. One day I'm on a Zoom class, and one day the Zoom classes are over, and without any real marker. So it was, as it was for so many of us, I don't know, an indescribable time. But I'll say the fear that I can speak to, at least to myself, was the fear of recognizing that this path that I'd been on for so long, and that I some part of me knew would end, but as a child I wasn't really thinking about that it would end. I was doing the most where I was at, and not too concerned with where I'd end up, and then I was kind of like, oh, I've ended up someplace and still going, but where did I end up? I ended up on the road with a car that was comfortable to sleep in and travel, and enabled me to go anywhere and live very inexpensively, and enough savings that I could see this obvious opportunity to do what I had known I craved for so long, and take a step back from work, school, all of it, to play and explore. And that's competing with the parts of me that are, feel I need to continue on the path, feel I need to get a job, pursue the career that had been working towards, even if inadvertently up until then. And the fear of uncertainty, and a rapidly changing world, and like, if I what amount of will taking time off hurt my job prospects? Do I even care about that? Who am I? What do I want to be? I suddenly have so much choice, and it's exciting and overwhelming, and then there's a conflict where my mind is definitely attached to the fear and the what am I gonna do, and that plays out with somewhat half-assed attempts to secure said career positions, where my mind was trying to and my heart was never really in it. But that kind of began the period for me when my heart was clearly ruling the day, and whatever I thought about myself, thought about what I wanted, that I wasn't in control, and I leaned into wandering, but it was the first time in my life I was ever really alone. There were moments of aloneness, certainly. I guess up till then, most of the time that I was really alone was in my parents' house as a child, after school or on the weekends, whenever there wasn't anything going on. And I'd been running away from being alone for a very long time, and running away from that into community, which my whole life has been this double-edged sword of just being in the presence of you all, of friends, of other people, is has always been such a gift to my nervous system. It is such a calming presence. It's so wonderful that it masks the parts of me that sometimes I wish people could see, the parts of me that are sad and feel alone. And then I'm with you and everything's better, and that's great, but also it means that, when I'm with you, everything's better, so you don't see the parts that when I'm alone again are, surprise, surprise, not better. And I was holding those parts close to my chest. I won't go down that rabbit hole. Where am I? I'm wandering. It's late 2020. I go for a hike in the woods. I lose my phone in a river, and then just sit in the woods for a couple days, and it began it wasn't the first time. I've felt drawn to nature as, I don't know, and I'm just rambling now. None of this is important. I mean, it is important, but your time is valuable, and I'm like 10 minutes into this. I don't know. If you're still watching this, I appreciate you. Or if you're listening, I don't know. Sharing my stories has always been something I've struggled with. Bringing what's in here, my experiences, my beliefs, into a linear narrative structure that can be expressed through words. And I've, for many parts of my life, tried to avoid that and try to purely express myself through what I create, through what I can show, through what I do, things that, while at the same time I was spending a lot of time trying to explain myself. It was a compulsion for me, and that still lingers in ways. I don't wish to explain, but I wish to be seen. And I wish to find a way to do that over this newfangled digital medium that we're all playing with and is so rapidly tearing apart everything we thought was real about society in this world. I feel so much potential to reconnect and be in conversation with y'all, and also I struggle with it and don't know how to do it over these. It's hard for me to not be in, when I'm not in presence, and can't see someone's reaction, see her face, when it's just me and a camera and there's no feedback to work off of. But at the same time, it's also, I kind of like it. It's calming to be when it's just me, and it's easier to express parts of myself when I don't feel seen. Anyways, there I was, wandering, lost, and really enjoying life. Like, no mistake about it. That was, I had my concerns, but that was a wonderful period of my life when I was able to explore and travel and be outside and do what I wanted and live. And it was also, I had no idea what I wanted. I had no idea how to live outside of the 9-to-5 structure of school and jobs and summer camps and I don't know, I'm figuring out the simple things about myself. When do I want to wake up? What's my sleep schedule? How do I work best? Like, who am I without and then doing so in a very playful environment where there's no real goal or objective. I'm decompressing from the stress and the pressure of America, school, corporate life, the grind that I had been so eagerly participating in for so long and felt rather spat out of, and felt conflictedly grateful that I'd been spat out, because I was like, oh, it's free at last, but also, there were real feelings of rejection and feelings of where do I end up, and that feels so long ago now. So much time has passed and so much has changed, but and now that was a space when I was connecting with many of you, that was one of the real blessings of that time, was allowing my travel to be dictated by, in many ways, by the friends in my life and who had time and who had space for me, and I got to be with so many of you, and it was, and that was so wonderful. I'm so grateful for all of you and all of the time that we shared, and or my whole life, but especially late 2020 in the fall, early 2021 in the spring, and then 2021 spring, summer was kind of when that period of play wrapped up for me. When I started feeling called to get back in the game, to do some work. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I was struggling to imagine what something I was struggling to imagine, but also what I wanted to do, while also struggling to let go of trying to imagine and embrace, trusting the universe. I was starting to flirt with that idea back then. Maybe it's, I've been flirting with that my whole life. Maybe it's just okay to just let it happen, but that was, and happen it did. And I was blessed with amazing work opportunity through some dear friends at an organization in Oregon. So as many of you know, I moved to Tigard, Oregon in the summer of 2021, and took up what in many ways amounted to a dream job, building playgrounds and structures in trees and in the forests. That at first that job was, and in many ways throughout the whole year I was there, that job was a dream come true. It enabled me to continue traveling, continue seeing different parts of this beautiful earth, different environments, different ecosystems, different parts of the world. Meet the people in those places. I really enjoyed traveling in a work environment, getting to, I kind of, I like the people it brought me into contact with. A lot of regular people running camps and doing outdoor programs and stuff that I like. The working on a crew was wonderful. I love building things. I love creating with other people. And after the solitude of much of the previous period of travel, that was a blessing in and of itself, to be immersed in this little community of builders, kind of cowboying our way from place to place, building all sorts of cool things, and I mean, it's and building relatively simple things. That was a lovely contrast to so much of the previous work that I'd done in more technical engineering spaces, where there's so much math and precision, like, to just be ripping power tools in the woods, and if it's within an eighth of an inch, you're good. Building, I mean, we do our best, and you're building in trees. It's an adaptive environment, and the rigging, the process, there's the motion. That was a good job. Wandering again, rambling, but I'm too far in. I am not starting this over. I'm gonna see if I can up the pace a little bit. We'll see. And that job was wonderful for the year that I did it, and taking me through the winter, end of 2021 into the spring of 2022. And spring of 2022, after doing that job for about a year, lo and behold, change is in the air again. And I think the beginning of that change is really marked with the meeting of someone special to me, someone who has gone on to become a central character in my life. But in the spring of 2021, we had just met, but that was starting to kind of shake things up. This job was wonderful, but the thing that had been weighing on me and was becoming more and more of a struggle was the endurance aspect of the travel, of the irregular travel, not knowing where I'm going to end up, not knowing what the living arrangements are going to be in advance, what the kitchen's going to be like, how to cook, like just keeping myself fed and nourished throughout this travel. And that work was, it was a great experience. I learned a lot in it, and it was getting a little old, jumping from job to job without refrigeration. And and I was just, the travel was a lot, and it was wearing on me, and I was feeling ready to be in kind of one place, and there was a lot of unprocessed baggage that I'd been carrying with me and had been building up over time and had not yet been addressed and was starting to bubble to the surface. And also, now this travel, it's shifting from being, it's so much fun to be all these places, to there's this person back at home who I'd really love to see and who I really want to be spending more time with. And I'm just starting to feel kind of hermit mode. And then to top all that off, that spring I undergo a significant surgery, the first really significant surgery of my life. First time I experienced general anesthesia, which, that was that laid me low. Coming back from that was a lot. I won't get into that, but yeah, that and that surgery last year was a significant milestone in terms of the change within my own life. And an experience that would go on to not shape all of me, but lay the groundwork, lay the foundation, or instigate, was the seed of a really intense period of change in my life that, I would, that began a little over a year ago now. I was anticipating the surgery was going to be a challenging experience physically, and it certainly was, and it was in line with what I was anticipating. It was really rough at first, very painful, very uncomfortable the first day, couple of days, first week. And within a couple of weeks, it's not too bad. I'm starting to feel better. I was pretty immobile for about 2 months, which is what I was expecting. But then after that, I was able to get back on my feet. I went back to work. I worked a couple of jobs, a 2-week job that was all in one place, and then I worked a week-long travel job when we went to a bunch of different places. And when I first went back, my body seemed to be holding up. I was like, cool, I did this surgery, we back at it, I'm still a cowboy. And then that just all came crashing down. I was not prepared for the mental experience that would follow. Something that I knew I wanted about, that I was looking forward to in that experience of surgery and the recovery was, I was looking forward to the recovery period, and I had been looking forward, in the back of my mind for some years at that point, since I'd started looking into the whole thing. Like the thought of having a couple months when I would be forced to just kind of sit back and chill, and that I couldn't, that was appealing to me. And I was not, and I kind of thought it would be fun. I was foolish of me. It was not fun. It was not fun at all. Very, very little was fun about that time. To be honest, there's been not that much fun since. There have been moments of fun, and I have clung to those moments and there's more and more fun every day. But this past year has been an immensely unfun time in my life, I will say. But it wasn't just the surgery. There was many other things leading up to that. But in the surgery and in the sitting with myself and facing myself after that, I will say the physical experience was humbling. Being bedridden, being able to, having that little ability to move and to care for myself, to be that reliant. I mean, I was anticipating that, but to be that face to face with how much I get by on my own ability to self-sustain, and how how really facing also how vulnerable I am to, what happens if that falters, and all at the same time being like, oh, I'm not so sure about the stability of my own narrative identity. I've just been kind of barreling through life and piling on and trying to do the most and trying to be everything and do everything. And, I kind of know that's not sustainable. And I reached the point where the story in my head of who I was, that I'd been carrying, just completely shattered. It just boom, gone. I mean, not gone, it's still with me. I've spent the last year working through that and picking up the pieces, and I don't know about picking up the pieces. That's not quite the right analogy. I said I was gonna go quick. I'm not going quick. This is a long video. This is, this is for me. And if you are still watching this video, I'm gonna take that as a sign that you are also for me. And I appreciate you very much. Thank you for being in my life. And I love you very much. Moving on. This narrative self is shattering post-surgery, and especially with this, that narrative self, I can do everything, was like, yeah, I'll be fine, I'll have the surgery, I'll come back, I'll keep living my life the way I'd been living, and and going back to work showed me that I couldn't do it. Especially that second job, that travel job, that I came to a head very rapidly in the realization that I was in a situation that was unsafe, that was not good for my general well-being. I was not respecting the needs of my body. Still only a couple months removed from the removal of an organ, and in the middle of the process of regrowing the other one, a body that I didn't fully appreciate at the time, but now recognize was beginning the somewhat lengthy recovery from a lifelong eating disorder, which that's a whole other video. I'm not gonna get into that, but I've had some struggles with food, and I've learned some things with food, and so much of this past year has revolved around my my developing relationship with food. Not now. But yeah, and it was, the job was a cowboy position. I knew that's what I had signed up for, there wasn't, it was not a lot of, I appreciated the freedom of the job, and what came with the freedom of the job was not a lot of oversight from management, and that included not a lot of safety oversight. I mean, like, there was the basics, but it just, I did not feel a deep concern for my well-being, and that there was a person above me who would recognize if I was in a position that was really physically unsafe and remove me. And I felt the need very rapidly, like I had to remove myself from that situation, and that snowballed into rapidly feeling the need to remove myself from kind of the world entirely. I mean, yeah. I was confronted full force by the reality of all of the needs that had gone unmet for myself. Wholly by myself, coming faced with the realities of not loving myself actively and sincerely, and not only feeling love towards myself, but showing love to myself, showing love to myself in how I practice self-care, how I nourish myself, how I create space in my life for rest and community and relationships. And the extent to which I'd been caught up in the game of engineering and school, and which I loved so much when it began. I lost myself in the game, and the game changed a few times, and then I found myself facing the reality that I'd been pouring my whole life. I'd been pouring more into my relationships with other people than I'd been pouring into my relationship with myself. Vroom vroom. And yeah, and I basically faced I felt this abrupt need to do basically a full 180, and after, all those years of doing the most and trying to run out in the world and be connected and hold it all and do everything, I just let it all go. Like, I'm gonna do the absolute least. I'm gonna retreat. And I mean, this isn't a plan or even like rational thought. It's just a happening in my life. It's what's like, it's this enormous wave of emotions, of negative experiences that I've been compartmentalizing my entire life, that are just all catching up to me, that I've suddenly found myself unable to run from. And so practically overnight, I go from running from this wave to turning around, sitting down, and just letting it wash me away. And oh boy, did it. And golly gee, did that suck. Oh. Yeah, that was, I mean, last summer, last fall, going into last winter, this just this a wave took me out, and I found myself unable to do anything but hold on to myself for dear life. And it was all I could do. It was literally all I could do to keep my body going, to keep myself fed, to, like, after, like, everything that I knew myself to be, energetic, and a lot of other things, but in this case, kind of principle, like, so much of who I was centered around my energy, and having the energy to do things. And I was so reliant on my own energy, and that energy just disappeared. There was nothing. I had nothing to give. Not nothing, but I had so little to give, and I felt so needy. And I was like, oh my God, I need everything I have to give. And so much of this old story was being someone who shows up for the people in my life, and all of a sudden I'm like, I have nothing to give to you all. I don't have the energy to respond to text, to answer phone calls. Like, I mean, many of you I haven't seen in more than just a year, and so, brief side note, one of the intricacies of this weird digital medium, of this online medium, is the number of audiences that we can speak to at once. So I'm just like I'm trying to and just because I'm not trying to make multiple of these videos, but I'm speaking to the people who've known me my whole life. I'm speaking to people who've known me for a couple of years, maybe some people who've met me more recently, people who know me really intimately well, and people who and I'd like anyone who's, I mean, at this point we're 40 minutes in, so if you hear this video is for you. And I don't know who's showing up, but I would like this to make sense to anyone who sees this, and I would like this to be a somewhat complete narrative for myself, because I mean, and to a certain extent, this isn't for you at all, and this is entirely for me. This is the things that I want to say. There's so much that's gone unsaid as I've been separated from you all this past year, and that has been needed as I allow the waters in myself to calm from an immensely turbulent state. And my reality has been that any stimulation, like for the healing work that I am doing, for this search for peace within myself, for making peace with myself, has brought me to a period where any stimulation is a disturbance. And like even the stimulation that I appreciate, like there are some of you have been in my life. I have had there have been people with me throughout all of this. I have not been alone, and I am incredibly grateful for that. And those people, I am sure, will see this video. So hello, welcome, thank you. Yeah, I go from being someone who doesn't have a whole lot of boundaries to setting an immense amount of boundaries all at once and retreating from the world. And I imagine that might have been confusing to a lot of you who have tried to contact me and been unable to. And yeah, so to anyone for whom how I've showed up, or specifically not showed up, for the past year has been confusing or concerning, I appreciate you. I appreciate you still being here, still listening to me, and I mean more than that. I appreciate your existence in my life, and I wish very much to reconnect with you, and I believe that I will do so as time and energy permits. I'm still re-emerging to the world. I guess, kind of cut to the chase, this whole emotional wave sweeps over me, peaks this winter, when I'm at my most angry, honestly. Like there's an enormous amount of emotions and feelings, but so many of them are manifesting as anger, and it's anger that wants to be directed at, and that's part of why these boundaries have been so important to me, and especially through the thick of it, in the darkest days for me in the winter, when I could feel that anger in me wanting to lash out, and wanting to lash out at people who, at the same time, I knew in my heart didn't deserve it. I knew then, and I know now, that y'all don't deserve my anger. I knew that I didn't deserve my anger, but it was there. It was reality, and I was overwhelmed by just anger and rage at no one in particular, at the world, at anger that simply was, and it was all I could do to feel that anger. Like I felt that anger wasn't for anyone else, and it wasn't anger at me, but I was feeling it, so it was for me, and there were lessons for me in it, and I needed to learn those lessons. And I've learned many lessons about myself in this past year. I feel much smaller. and much more open. I mean, in many ways I was open, but there was many things that I was not open-minded to. I would hear anything, but I was very closed-minded generally to ideas that there were greater forces at work in this universe. It feels so long ago. It's been a long year for me. Relative. I mean, a year is a year, but it has felt the emotions that I have been present with this past year, and the depths within myself that I've gone to, the lows that I have experienced. Have dragged out. But through it all has been this person who I met almost a year and a half ago now. And this story is not about them, but they are essential. They are essential character, and this story does not make sense without their presence as my light, my rock. I don't know about my rock, but the grounding presence in my life that has kept me safe and secure as I allow myself to be swept away by the currents of life that I had been resisting for so long. And I feel now I have somewhat washed ashore, someplace new. Not necessarily far away, but I don't really know where I am now. I'm doing well. This is a long time into the video to say that, but in this moment I'm doing well. I'm healthy, I am well nourished, I'm well rested, I feel well cared for, the type of care that I was not giving to myself has now become a part of my everyday practice. I feel able to support myself, my body, my existence in this world, independent from those systems and structures that I was so, I mean, in some ways not independent at all. Like, I still need the grocery store to be there. I'm not growing my own food. I'm not like, water comes out of the tap, like, so, you know, the regular amount, because, you know, my reality was that I had been fed my whole life. I was fed as a child. I was fed in college, and then even at work, I had a job that fed me dinner and that enabled me to buy lunches and be fed that way. And when I wasn't being fed, I went unfed, which was worked for me for a time, I guess, because it's what was going on, but it did not work. Now I feed myself, and I take that seriously. And that feels good. So here I am. I'm doing well. I feel healthy. I'm still dipping my toes in the water, although who knows? You can never tell when the tides will sweep you away. But also I've come ashore. I don't know. My metaphors are all over the place. I don't know where I am. But I like where I am, and I like as all of this has resolved. That has come with the blessings of so much of these. I was carrying so much fear with me everywhere I went that I didn't even recognize that I was carrying in my body. And to be free from that is a blessing. The journey of this past year has even when it's been painful, even when it's been difficult, I've seen it as a gift, and honestly, I've kind of had to. That's been keeping me. It's been seeing me through. Is holding on to the good of holding on to the good, and allowing the bad to be, and allowing it to come and go. I feel comfortable with bad in a way that I wasn't. Like, I still don't like it. It's still bad, but I've accepted it as an everyday part of my reality in a way that I hadn't. And in that I've found peace, a peace that I didn't know, and that peace is worth everything to me. And that peace is something that I will safeguard, and as I re-engage in the world, central to how I do that is ensuring that I do so in a way that enables my continued peace and continued health. And I'm still teasing and learning my own boundaries for engaging in the world. Yeah. And holding an open mind to letting life play out. I feel this chapter of healing that I've been on this past year has been wrapping up. Of course, health will, I imagine and see, being a continued part of my life. And at the same time, I'm preparing for the next chapter. And it's an interesting chapter in that preparing for it mostly consists of, for me, has been mostly consisted of opening, of shedding restrictions in my mind about who I need to be, how I need to show up in the world, about what's possible. I guess I hinted at this a little earlier when I referenced earlier in life being closed-minded to the idea that there are greater forces at work, and now I find myself holding the polar opposite belief. I find myself securely resting in faith of the universe, nature, the consciousness that I experience in the world around me. This experience that I have come to call God, and this relationship with it's a whole can of worms, but now I sit here watching this bird that just flew up and landed perched on the sill and then flew away. And now in that I see confirmation. I see nature speaking to me in the birds, in the clouds. And I became open to this idea, really last year in the fall. And it has been a continued practice to look to nature and to look to nature with an open mind and an open heart to see what I can learn. I've been taught so much about myself by the birds and the trees and the ocean and the rain and the weather. And I also recognize that has always been the case. My entire life, it has been nature that has been teaching me the most important lessons. The nature I see in organic matter, but also the nature I see in mechanical creation, in devices and gadgets and the things people build. And so I sit here with faith that what will come, and that what I can do is prepare myself to contribute to the world and keep myself, healthy, look after myself, and look for the opportunities to where my abilities have alignment with I don't even know if I'm doing that. It's just doing what I'm called to do, following my heart. And there's in the following of my heart, there is a certain forecasting of of what's to come. I'm not immune to that, guesses about how it might play out. But in this moment, I'm really holding to anything is possible. And in that space of anything is possible, what is the change that I wish for in this world? And that is somewhat central to my faith, that I believe that in caring for myself and holding an open heart and holding in my heart the change that I wish to see in the world, that act alone is enough to manifest that change. And that change might flow through me. And it is not my job to control the change in the world that I influence. It is not my job to dictate it in any way. It is my job to sit back and enable it to flow by caring for myself and listening to the God, the consciousness that I see in nature, in the animals, in the weather, in myself, in the people around me in my life, in everything that I experience. So I guess that kind of brings me to now, brings me to here, to sitting on this bench, spilling my guts out for nigh on an hour now, to the world, to anyone who is interested in listening, to this camera as much as to the winds and the mountains. This way of being feels somewhat unusual to me. I mean, recently it feels very normal. Because this is kind of how I've been living for a while now. A very simple life of going for walks and meditating and eating food and rest and healing and detachment from the concerns of the world. In some ways. Finding balance between detachment from the concerns of the world and keeping an open ear to what is going on and the suffering that is taking place. And there is much suffering that is taking place in the world today. And so much of this healing for me has been unpacking my own ancestral legacy and its connection with the suffering of the world today, both the suffering of myself and my own family and the people of the groups that society says I belong to, and the groups that society says I do not belong to. All these different groups, all these complex relationship, societal dynamics that have been playing out. And coming to see my little place in it. Coming to terms with all that I have been given. My privilege, my opportunity, has weighed on me heavily for a long time now, more than a decade at least, but has built and built as I age and, last half dozen years or so as I start to consciously recognize, a departure from childhood. And, as I've grown up, so much of that is just, I don't know, and it's too much to tell. There's so much revelation, there is so much unseen truth. There's so much that has gone unsaid. And I feel this, so not just gone unsaid, but there has been much that has been hidden. Hidden by the powers that be, which I may not be a direct representative of, but certainly I have been a beneficiary of my entire life. And there's much that these powers that be do not want to talk about, and that's been bubbling to the surface. I mean, for longer than I've been alive, I see now, but especially in this internet era, as all of this global connection is enabled, the shadows are shrinking, and what was hiding in the shadows has been coming out, and it has been rearing its ugly head. When we have been grappling with the realities of what has been there all along, that which so many of us, and including younger versions of me, dearly wished did not exist at all. There's so much that I believe now that is different than what I believed not that long ago, but at the same time that I see that the differences are in many ways superficial. The depth of belief is in many ways consistent, and the real change is a clarity. And that clarity allows me to see my own beliefs more deeply than I used to. Like, the beliefs were there, but I struggled to recognize them myself. And because I struggled to recognize them, I struggled to live them in my day-to-day life. There were many times when I strayed away from what I believed in my heart. I feel I found that again. And I look in the world and I look at the powers that be, and I see many forces that maybe have strayed away from their own hearts. And I believe that these things that have gone unsaid are central to all of the emergent crises that surround us in the world today, as it feels we collectively are coming to realize I mean, many of us have realized for a long time, have known for a long time, but so much is coming to a head in so many elements of society. Spurned by, is that a word? Spurred along by the growing and ever deepening political divides, as well as the burgeoning realities of a climate crisis that is no longer a theoretical reality in the future, but is a lived reality here and now, something that we are all feeling and experiencing, and is undeniable in a way that even 10 years ago it was not. Like, undeniable to me, to myself. I'll speak for myself here. Like, I've, teenage me was like, yeah, recycle and, take care of the earth. And I was all for environmentalism, and I didn't feel it in the way I do now. I was, and I can't expect myself to have. I was still a child, but it's different to when it feels real, when it's not just something that's real in the mind, but real in the spirit, real in the body, real in the lived experience day to day. And to be seeing the world change before our eyes is a profoundly disconcerting experience. And I struggle to find the balance between finding connection in this ever-changing landscape when it's so easy for just us to be washed away from another, for the connection to be washed away as we are and yet all of that is neither here nor there, because this video is about me. Here I am, watching the sunset on this cloudy day on the Kitsap Peninsula. Beautiful place, beautiful earth. It is a blessing and a gift to live in this region, to live among the trees, to live near water, to be among nature as much as I am. And here I am, at peace in my little life in a cottage in the woods, preparing to reemerge and re-enter the world and to give my offering, that which I have to contribute. And what I have to contribute is guided by what I feel is called for in the world around me. And right now, I look at the world around me and I see a society that is deeply divided in many ways, along so many different spectrum. Our experiences of reality being ripped apart by the incredible forces of the powers that be, by the economic and governmental structures that we live under and that have become ever more successful at sucking, at extracting profit, at extracting wealth from us, at extracting our energy. And as they become ever better, as they become more and more adept at squeezing us, it can be harder and harder to see what we'll do. How we'll get through this as a people, as a united people. When it seems so clear that our fundamental governmental structures are incapable of addressing the issues of the day. And I believe that. I do not believe in this moment that the necessary change is capable from within these established structures. I feel we need new systems of governance that are capable of addressing corporate structures that are running amok, corporate power structures that have ever better at avoiding what regulation there has been and can skirt the laws faster than they can be written. And are bleeding the earth dry, are threatening the very existence of life as we know it in this world, are threatening clean air, clean water, clean food, increasingly threatening the security of shelter. Never been great on the healthcare front, but you know, in many ways looking ever shaky, like these are the areas I wish to contribute. These are the areas where I feel, not that I specifically am needed the most, but that I feel collective energy, collective action is needed the most. And I don't know what that collective action looks like. I know I can't do it on my own. I know, and there are many other people who have been doing this work for a long time, and I look to these people. These people inspire me as I look to find my place, find what it is that I have to contribute. But this is the area that I wish to be. For the sake of my own peace, for the sake of the world, and for the sake of children everywhere. That we might all live in a more peaceful, so crazy my voice is cracking. That we might all live in a more peaceful, loving, and joyful world with opportunity and safety for all. And I find that as I am backed more and more into the corner of uncertainty about not knowing how I might get to this world in which I wish to live, the simpler and simpler my wishes become. And here I am wishing to contribute to this world and trying to align myself with the greater forces I see at work, while also holding space towards an open future and the uncertainty of these forces may lead us wherever they will. And the direction that I feel called towards, the direction that I feel these forces pulling us towards, the direction of mutual healing and community healing is one of community, of healing community structures into healing economic structures into healing governmental structures, rather than one of trying to fix governmental structures so we can fix the economic structures so that we can fix the community structures. These top-down approaches that I have no belief are capable of addressing the needs of a complex and varied electorate. I mean, more than an electorate, a complex and varied people with complex and varied needs. I believe these powers and be there's so many problems in the world today, and yet there is only one problem. The problem of power being unequally distributed, such that some hold power over other people's lives, which, while I believe it is unfair, despite the unfairness, is simply impractical. Because these people who have been striving for so long to hold power over lives of the common folk, it is becoming so increasingly clear that they are incapable of meeting our needs. And they are also incapable of keeping us squeezed into a box of needs that they can meet. So there it is: community, then economy, then government, and that puts me here, smack dab at square one: community healing, mutual aid. What does that look like? I don't know. But here I am, showing up for it, preparing for it, readying myself for it, and preparing my own creative offering. This past year, as I sit with my own pain, as I sit with my own shit, the shit that muddies the water of my internal spiritual being, as I have processed and excreted all of that shit. I have and found this own internal clarity, and there is a creative project that I have been cultivating under the surface for a long while now, which I very much wish to share with you, and at this time must refrain from speaking on, because it is not quite ready for release, and I wish for it to speak for itself. Any words if I try to explain it, it will only rob from the art. But what I can say is that there is, as I sit and process, much has been swirling in this weird mind, spirit, and body of mine. And much is taking shape. And I've been crafting a seed within myself, and that seed, I feel, is about to emerge, and I am about to enter a phase of watering this seed and nourishing the creative elements of myself that I've had to kind of drastically put on hold for this past year, as to put it simply, I was running into creativity away from the parts of myself that were in pain, and so in the healing and processing of those parts of myself in pain, that has necessitated stepping back from creativity and kind of damming my own creative flow, and behind that dam, a reservoir has been building, and I'm there's nothing to say, and yet I feel the desire to say something anyways. So I will simply sit with that desire and let it settle out. And let nothing tangible be said other than that there is a creative pursuit coming, something that I've been working on for quite some time, something that I am very excited about, and something that in the immediate future I will be pouring all of the extra that I have into. It is not my first priority. My first priority towards pouring my own love that comes from source. Well, the zero priority is myself. First priority is my family. And the second priority is my friends. And that ultimately is why I'm here creating this long video out of the blue that who knows if anyone will watch all the way through. And the third priority is this creative pursuit, this creative offering. And I will continue, I wish to continue to pour into all of these elements of my life. And I wish very much to pour into you all and be reconnected with you all. And I recognize that will come in time, and I only have so much of that. I have only so much energy. And this summer, I imagine myself on the road again. I imagine myself in a position where I can come and be in your lives again and reconnect face to face, which I very much wish to do. And while I hold myself free of the expectation it will happen, I very much look forward to the hypothetical possibility. Should the universe and the currents of life see fit to bring our paths cross. I guess lastly, before I go get some food to fill this growing pit in my stomach, because I've just been sitting here and talking for an hour and a half almost, and that's exhausting. Talking is hard for me. This is the most I've talked in continuously in a while. And the most I've spoken. I aim to speak these days more than I talk. But I think I feel the last thing I wish to speak to you is my immense gratitude to everyone who has played a role in my life. I am overwhelmed with gratitude to be where I am today. And where I am today would not be possible without the contributions of every single person. Period. Every person, I mean, if we're keeping it 100, every person, every animal, we are all interconnected. And yet it especially would not be possible without the contributions of everyone who I have touched and everyone who has touched me. Everyone who I have met, shared time with, been in relationship with, been in community with, be it as friends, classmates, peers, all co-workers, people I've met out in the world on hikes and bike trips. Anyone who I have spent time with, all of that time has been a gift, and And I am here because of the experiences I've shared with you all and the things you all have taught me about myself. So much of that drive to do the most my whole childhood was rooted deep down in this part of me that was trying to understand myself, and I was unable to see. I didn't want to look in a mirror. I wasn't ready to face myself. But what I was able to do was face myself in the people around me, face myself in the reflections that I saw in the people in my life, and the all of the things that you teach me about the world, about the universe, about humanity and the variety of ways people can be. I feel immense gratitude for all of you, everyone who has been in my life up till now, and everyone who will be in my life going forward. I cherish all the moments we have shared, and am prepared to cherish many more. I hope to very much to live a long and fruitful life, although it is out of my control. And I hope very much that life is intertwined with people who love me, and people who love me for me. And I've often been overwhelmed and confounded by the mere existence of you, of people who love me for me and have loved me for me since before I was able to. I learned to love myself in the people around me. So thank you all for your contribution. And while I feel I have much to show you all, I have nothing left to say. So, may you be well. May your life be one of peace, love, and joy, and until our paths cross again. I love you.